Hi, this is Ashley,
And this is Kristen.
and this is 1,000 Miles of True Crime.
Hey,
Hey, how have you been?
you know what? I have been fabulous. I'm glad that tomorrow is Friday
Oh,
and
yes.
I'm excited for the weekend. How was your week been? How's things been?
It's been good. We were in Michigan last weekend, so I was like outside the entire time, which I love. Okay, so like Labor Day's unofficial end of summer. So I'm like already have seasonal depression. It's not even cold yet, but I just like the leaves are changing, and I know everyone in my life loves fall, and I'm like so happy for them. And I love like Halloween and stuff, but I'm a summer girl and I'm so sad.
Hey, come on down to Texas. You can visit. We still have some months left of warm weather for sure.
I gotta do it.
Yes, absolutely. I actually spent the weekend and a few days and through the week binge listening to a new podcast that I was just completely blown away by. The content is absolutely horrifying. It is just, and I'm just throwing that out there, but I listened to Hunting Warhead, and I strongly recommend everyone go listen to it. It's done so well. Um, I don't want to like spoil what it's about, but um, it's about pedophiles and
Oh,
it
okay.
is I mean
That
it
needs a trigger
is
warning, but I
definitely a trigger warning, insert trigger warning here, but just another reminder that people are monsters, um and yeah.
So is
Yeah,
it like one case, the whole series kind of thing? Okay.
yeah, it
I haven't
is.
done one of those in a while. Okay.
I'll just throw out, it involves the dark web, involves multiple parties, um and it's horrifying. It's horrifying, but how they were able to like find the culprits and cave in on them was just like wow. Wow. So done very well, and I can't remember like who recommended it, but I was so happy and I was like I'm telling everyone that I know because us true crime lovers, like
I'm
the
I
many out there, we like, I don't want to say we like, but we're just like in shock of some of the things that we hear on podcasts of people doing, and it's like I cannot believe that this is an actual thing. Like people do stuff like this. Um, so yeah, that's I spent a lot of my weekend and week listening. So check it out. And yeah, that's I don't want to say that's all I did, but yeah.
I get
Yeah,
it.
there were some other things mixed in there. You know what I mean. Um, I have a question for you though. Who are we talking about today? Who are you covering?
So I thought I was gonna do something like a little lighter, but I'm doing Jodi Arias, and I think she's horrible now. So I don't know. What do you? I the like because I always remember like her singing in the interrogation room. You know what I'm talking about, and like all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I thought this was gonna be lighter than it is, but I really think she's a horrible person.
I can't wait. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. Okay, so she was born in California, and she was raised a Christian. And she's the oldest of four. So there was two girls, two boys. She's the oldest and had like a pretty normal family overall from all accounts. But she talks about that somewhere around age 7 or 8, like her parents start really abusing her. She claims that her mom would beat her with a wooden spoon and then would bring the wooden spoon with them everywhere as like a threat. But both her parents completely deny this. And her mom even says, like, I don't know why you made up this horrible childhood, but like you need to get over it. You need to get some help. Like you're crazy, get some help kind of thing. So I mean, I don't know, I probably, obviously she might not want to admit to it, but again, this seems really weird. There's no records of like Jodi coming to school all bruised up or anything, but yeah, the way she accounts it, like she had it rough. And so her parents decide actually when she's a very young teenager that they're going to move to Wairika, California, and they want to open up a Mexican restaurant. This is a much smaller town, and Jodi did not adapt well because it's a small town. Everybody's like known each other forever. They're really cliquey, and here walks in Jodi, and it seemed like people just, she was having issues making friends. So in the 8th grade, her parents bust her growing weed in her room. And I don't know, what would your parents do if they busted you in the 8th grade?
Oh, I don't know. That's pretty young, I think, as far as experimentation. But to be growing it, my parents probably would have killed me, or beat my ass. I mean, what would your parents have done?
I don't know. I don't know. They probably would have been like, I like the entrepreneurial spirit. Like, but her parents actually called the cops. So, I mean, would your parents have called the cops? Like, yeah, I'm sure my parents absolutely would have punished me, but they never would have. I don't think they would have called the cops on me for it. And
No.
so, yeah, I don't know. I guess they just freaked out, called the cops. She didn't really get in much trouble. Like, she didn't get arrested for it or anything, but she never trusted them again. Like, even her parents admit, like, that was like a game changer. She wouldn't tell them anything. Like, she was like really private all of a sudden. She hid everything from them. And then, because of that, they got stricter and things like that. And she couldn't take it anymore and actually moved out when she was like 16. She was only a junior in high school. And she said, enough's enough. She moved out and she moved in with one of her boyfriends. So she wants to like start her life, and she feels like she's a real creative person. Like, she loves photography and she wants to like, excel in that. She wants to grow that whole business a little more. She never got much success for it. I think we would have heard about that, but she did shoot some weddings. So could you imagine like watching Dateline and being like, wait a second, I remember her.
Yeah. Uh, Yikes. I don't know. That's gonna make me question when I plan a wedding, of who I choose for my photographer.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah,
Gotta run like a background check on him now.
seriously.
And okay, she wants to, she's got big dreams, she's got big goals. So she's like, this small town it never was for me. And she moves to Big Sur, California. So more touristy of an area, a lot more things to do. And there she meets her new boyfriend, Daryl Brewer. And he's not like a huge character in this story, but personally, I remember his testimony for me was like really like how do you say it? Like the nail that put the coffin in
The
her.
nail in the coffin.
There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah, I can't do this today, but to me, I just remember like watching the 2020 special and being like, "Whoa, she definitely did this. She planned this out." So I'll get into that more later. But she did have like a long-term relationship with him. She was living with him and his son, and she was really helping out. But the thing that I didn't know that again sort of shocked me was that so obviously he had an ex-wife or got this baby mama, and Jodi comes across as being like super confident, but I think that I don't know. Well, I'll ask you what you think of why she did this, but she like the ex-wife has like platinum blonde hair, and Jodi actually has really dark hair, has her whole life, and all of a sudden she goes platinum blonde. And okay, everybody has a blonde phase, maybe you say. I'm not going to judge her for that. But then the baby mama she gets her boobs done. She gets a boob job, and like weeks later, Jodi's like making the appointment pretty much, and she gets hers done. So, I mean, what do you think that means, or what do you think about that?
She's trying to compete, or she feels a little bit threatened, and she wants to one up her boyfriend's ex-wife. This is maybe what he likes or maybe what he's into, so I'm gonna try and mimic that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I get.
I do think that's a big part of it. I also think that we'll find with her that she's that girl who's like, tell me what you want me to be and I'll be it. Like I think she thinks of herself even as being like sort of moldable. So I think it's both. I think it's either a bit of a confidence thing, or it's just like, hey, this is what you like, this is what I'm gonna be, and I'm gonna be perfect for you. So I don't
But
know.
why not just be yourself? If you've already like got the guy or whatever, he's with you. Obviously, there's something about you that he likes already enough as it is. So why bother, you know? Um, if it is if it is a confidence thing, I don't know. I feel like then I would lean more towards being moldable and really trying to please who you're with versus trying to compete with the ex-wife.
Yeah. I we'll see with her personality. It could have been either. Depend. Well, I'll let you make your decision at the end, but they're living life, everything's going okay, but it starts to, they hit a rough patch. Even though they've been together for like 4 years, they're clearly like less in love, we'll say that. And that's when Daryl, who is older, like is just telling her, hey, I love you, but I'm not getting married again. I have zero plans of that. And I never want to have more children. And that was a deal breaker for her. So like I think she kind of had a foot out the door sort of thing already in the relationship. And she was working really hard, not just like around the house and helping with the son, but she also was working 3 jobs at this time. So she was ready for a change. And that is when she comes across this company, Prepaid Legal. So this is like basically it's a pyramid scheme, but from all accounts now. But what they do is literally it's in the title. So they sell legal services. So you just pay monthly. And I did zero research, but I'm assuming this is like far more for companies that like constantly need contracts reviewed or something, and less like, hey, I think I might be in jail next March and I'd like to start paying now. But they throw a bunch of these conventions, and she decides she's new with the company. She really wants to do well. She's gonna go to Vegas and go to this convention. And when she's there, there's this motivational speaker, and he's this guy's rising quickly at the company, and he's really attractive. And a guy on Jodi's team actually knows this guy, Travis Alexander, and he's telling her, like, he's telling him, you've got to meet this girl on my team. Like, she's really attractive. You're gonna like her. So yeah. So he introduces them, and right away he's like, hey, he's liking Jodi a lot. And he asked her, did you bring like a really nice dress that you can wear? Because I really want to take you to the formal executive dinner. And like usually, because you get 2 tickets, so most people bring their wives, but he's not married. He doesn't have a girlfriend there or anything. And they end up going together. And everybody says like the whole night he's like really trying to impress her. They're like talking the whole time. And they even end up staying up and just talking till like 4 a.m. And the next morning he tells his friends, like, I just met the girl I want to marry. Like he's smitten. He just loves her. And she drives home and immediately breaks up with Daryl. So I'm assuming she had very similar feelings.
Sounds mutual for sure. What was the guy's name? The motivational speaker guy?
So this is Travis Alexander.
Okay.
So this is now the story is going to be about him. We'll hear about Daryl during the trial. But now they've met, like they basically met on vacation, right? Like they met in Vegas, but neither of them live in Vegas. She lives in California and he lives all the way in Mesa, Arizona. But they're going to do the long distance thing. They're going to try to make it work. One way they do this, they both love traveling. So they're taking all of these trips. And I actually really love this part. They got this book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. And they were just like checking them off the list, right? Like they're going to all these places that are on this book. And I think there's like maybe this goal of like one day we'll do all 1,000. And I don't know, I thought it was really cheesy and sweet, and I kind of want to get that book now.
Same. I'm like scrambling to go on Amazon and make sure I buy that book today.
Right.
Okay.
So I mean, again, they're growing in this relationship. It's still new, it's still young. But let's take a look at Travis a little more. So I feel like I almost remember him as being like this bro. I don't want to say like I didn't know he had a past, but like he had a really rough childhood. And that's actually why I brought up the whole Jodi thing. Like, I want to know when her rough childhood actually started. Because I'm wondering if she was just like, I need to have a rough childhood too, so that you'll relate to me. But he had it rough. He had both his parents were addicted to drugs. Like his mom would, go, she would do a bunch of drugs and pass out for 4 days and stuff. So like the kids were not being taken care of, and there was no food in the house. And he was talking about how like, when there's no adults there, and the food runs out. Like sometimes the food will go bad and it'll be rotting, and then you just give up and you'll eat that food. It's that bad of a situation. And then when she would wake up, she was abusive. So it was just bad all around. But thankfully, his grandma would eventually come and like take over the situation. She actually took all of the kids, they moved in with her, and she started taking care of them. And she was Mormon, and she wanted them raised in the church, and she wanted, to help them, guide them out of this like terrible childhood, right? And it really worked. Like Travis loved the church. It seems like all of his siblings did, but this really helped him like build his identity. And he really attributes the church to actually helping him a lot. And this helped him, and he was successful. He was happy, had a bunch of friends, he was really doing good in life. And he even he gave back. He did missionary work in Colorado, and he was really trying to live this good Mormon life.
Is he still fairly young at this time too?
Yeah, so around this time he is 29.
Okay.
29, 30, and let me do the math. She's like 3 years younger than him, so she's like 27.
Okay.
And so their relationship's going good, but obviously, I mean, I already said it, she's Christian, he's very Mormon, and that's like a big elephant in the room. He has never even dated a non-Mormon woman. And he's like, I really like this girl though. Maybe I can get her to convert. And he actually starts sending Mormons to her house to try to convert her. And every night he's reading her scripture. And Jodi's like, okay, I can get the hint. Like, I'll be whatever you want me to be. Like, I always have wanted to become a Mormon. Like, and so she tells him, I want to be baptized as Mormon. And, he says, I will baptize you. And she officially gets baptized. She is now Mormon. So do you want to like take any guess, like how far into their relationship they are?
Weeks.
Close, 2 months. So you believed in her more than or less than she should have. So yeah, they're like about 2 months in. I don't even know if they're actually technically officially dating, but at this point they are going on all these trips and stuff. So now they're both Mormon, but they're having sex, which is really, it's like a completely against the rules. And so now it's like, I don't know if he thought like, I'll make her Mormon and then we'll stop sinning, but now they're just full sinning. Like, and they really seem to be like, Travis is addicted to her. Like, there's no way around it. Like, and they are not, I don't mean to go into all the sex stuff, but like, I listened to a lot of the trial, and like there's a lot of sex tapes on there. Not sex tapes, but like they would call each other, they do like the sexting and all this stuff. So or phone sex, and she recorded it, so we got to listen to it.
Wait a second, she recorded it?
Yeah, I'm actually like, that was like a spoiler alert, because I'll get into all of that very soon.
I mean, also it's still new, right? So anytime that you're in something new, you're like all over that person, you're obsessed with that person, you just want to spend every waking moment with that person, and you can't keep your hands off of them. But so how deep into this now is it? Like, or this is still like around the 2-month mark or early in their relationship?
Yeah, this is this is still really early. This is like 2 months, 3 months mark. And the problem is, so what I can tell from my research and stuff is like he's not looking for a girlfriend. He's definitely not looking for a booty call kind of thing. He is looking for a wife. And I guess like in Mormonism. So I guess when you're Mormon, and forgive me if I got this wrong, but I was reading that 30 is like a big age. Like you're supposed to be married by the time you're 31. It's like you almost have to hang out in a different group if you're not married. So to him, it's really important now. And he's like, so he is looking for a wife. And I think he was trying to turn Jodi into the perfect wife. But the more it's going along, the more he kind of sees her as like the bad girl, you know. He even calls her like a slut and things like that. So I think that like in his head, it's just like you can't marry her, right? Like she's not pure. Like, and so yeah, so what she's doing, like in her other relationships, I'm sure it worked. She was like, I know how to keep a man. Let me show you. And he's like, you're making me impure, even though I really don't want you to leave quite yet. So
Sounds like she was quite the temptress.
yes, yeah, I will definitely say that.
Okay, okay. So then what happens?
Oh, it gets weird. Let me tell you. So his friends are like even starting to notice that she might be a little weird. And Travis has these friends that he really looks up to. They're a little older of a couple. It's Chris and Sky. And that's like relationship goals for him, you know? And he likes to stay there and kind of learn from them. And their house is actually, they have a house that's like halfway in between where Travis and Jodi live. So it's perfect. And they let them come there all the time. I mean, they let them come there so much, they like give them their own rooms and everything. And, you know, they have to sleep in separate rooms because, again, they're not supposed to be sleeping together. And they're relaxing one night in the hot tub, and they're like just, you know, having conversation and enjoying themselves. But Jodi will not stay off of Travis. Like she's on him, she's biting his neck, and like it's like 4 of them in a little hot tub. And Sky actually describes it as like 8th graders whose parents went out of town. And it was just like very uncomfortable for all of them. And Travis is like embarrassed and like trying to get her off of him, but she just will not stop. She will not get off of him. And she's really starting to get like super clingy. Like she'll follow him to the bathroom and just wait out there and listen, like weird stuff like that. And she gets really jealous. Like if he is talking to another girl for anything, she gets like super jealous. And she wants him right by her whenever they're out all the time. So people know. She's like makes it clear, I want people to know that we are together. And it's, you know, it's just a lot. It's a lot to take.
It sounds like it's almost bordering on obsession, like she was obsessed with him. I mean, to be outside of the bathroom while someone's going to the bathroom would make me feel uncomfortable, and I'd probably see that as a red flag. And oh, I mean, Travis, I'm sure, is seeing this and is recognizing this is not healthy and this is not someone that I can have a future with, right?
No, I mean, from what it seems like, he's not really seeing it quite yet, you know? He's still like really into her. He thinks she's really like it's all innocent. She's like, it's not going to go much further. He's really seeing it too more as like, oh, she's going through my phones. Like she's just insecure and jealous. But she's like, with everything, takes it one step further. Where like she would go through his phone and actually send any like email or anything to another woman. Like she would send it to herself so she could read it later and like really read over it and things like that. So, but he's sort of just not seeing it. But she's leaving every hint possible that she is ready to be his fiance and she wants to move to Mesa to be with him, but he's not really like inviting her kind of thing to do that. So she tells him like, I'm actually really scared here. some guy's obsessed with me and he keeps sending me all these emails. And she's showing him these emails and they say things like, you're gorgeous and I know you're alone because Travis is in Arizona and I'm going to come attack you sometime and things like that. And they're just really bizarre. And he's kind of worried and he actually brings it up to his friend Sky and Chris again and he's like, can you believe this? Like look at what's going on. And Sky's like, are you serious? Like she wrote that. Like she's the one who wrote that. Like
Like
don't
how?
this.
I think it sounds like he just wanted to believe it. Just, I mean, maybe to have her closer to him, but I mean, his friends are even like, yo, what? How much more obvious can it be?
Right. So
That's diabolical. You know that, right?
Yeah, right. Don't worry, it's gonna get a little worse. But um they're gonna talk to him about it. They're actually talking to him right now. So Sky texts Chris because they're there all the time, and she's like, I can't stand Jodi. And like the phone sitting there, and Travis actually sees it, like it pops up, and he's like, what's going on? Why don't you like my girlfriend? And Chris is like, I don't want to talk to you about this alone. Like, I think like Sky would want to be a part of this conversation. Like, let's all talk about it later. So they wait until that night when Jodi is asleep and they all go into Sky and Chris's room and they're like, look, she's obsessed with you. This isn't safe. Like, we're actually scared. We're worried for your safety at this point. And Sky even says, like, I'm terrified that we're gonna get a call one day that she has you like chopped up in her freezer or something. And it's like kind of a joke, but obviously it's creepy now. And they're talking, and then all of a sudden she's like she gets this feeling that someone's listening in. So she's like pointing to the door, like she's out there. And Travis is like, no, he's still sort of in denial. And Chris is like, oh, she's like, they're whispering like she's behind that door. So Travis like sneaks over to the door and whips it open. And she's standing there. She gets busted, standing there listening. And she's like, oh, is there gonna be a problem? You fucking nutcase.
To get caught like that eavesdropping, you know how mortifying and embarrassing that had to have been for her. I mean, come on.
Come on.
Because have you ever been in that situation where you're talking shit? You're like,
that's the worst yet.
And then to have the door opened and you're like, well, she heard everything that we were talking about.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know who's more embarrassed, but like getting busted with your ear at the door is gotta be pretty bad. Like,
yeah.
And especially when you're like, well, they're not planning my birthday party.
And then too, you're at their house. So it's like, okay, do I leave? Because now I feel really awkward. They're talking shit. They think I'm a weirdo. They think I'm crazy. Maybe I am crazy. Like, I would want to leave. Like, what do you do?
Well, don't worry, because they kicked her out. They were like, they didn't like kick her out right that night, but they were like, she can't come here anymore. And
okay.
And at that moment, Travis is like, go downstairs. Like, I'll come talk to you later. And yeah, like they make it clear, like, we don't feel safe. And they said, like, when he opened the door, at first it was just like pure anger. Like she was furious. And so Sky actually, like, I don't know if it was like the next morning or whatever, she is downstairs with her and Jodi's like, she's telling her like, you're not allowed in my house anymore. Like, I think you're obsessed with him. Like you should basically get some help. And she's like, not like zero emotion or whatever. And then she's like, well, are you gonna tell Travis not to see me? And she's like, I already did. And that's when she starts crying. Like she's like, no. But always an interesting time with her. So you'd think, right? Like what do you think the next step is?
I mean, I feel like I know that Travis obviously didn't stop talking to her at this point, right? Like this is my guess. Um, but he did, right? He continued to see her, and I'm sure she got crazier.
Yeah, he did not break up with her. They still stayed together for a couple months, but
And she's still like they're still living apart.
yeah, at this point they're still living apart. But I think like, you know, when somebody like points stuff out to you and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I
Ding, ding,
yeah,
ding, little light bulbs start coming on. You're like, okay,
yeah. So I
I see
definitely
your, yeah.
like, oh, maybe that's not normal. Like I forgot. So I think it's like a few more months of this, and he just realizes, like, yeah, my friends were right. Like, I need to break up with this girl. This isn't a good situation. So Jodi Arias thinks, okay, perfect time. I'm gonna move to Mesa, Arizona right now. So they went from being like 1,000 miles apart to being 10 minutes apart.
Okay, so, but she didn't move in with him.
No,
She
she
just
didn't.
moved closer.
No, because she's stalking him. He doesn't want her. She's just there all the time now. And but like I'm not gonna say he didn't want her at all. I'm not blaming him. You know how it is. Like it was hard to get over her. It was hard to move on from her when she was 1,000 miles away. And now she's 10 minutes away and you could just be hooking up all the time.
And
So
there, I get that. I was just gonna say that it almost is like the temptation is there. He's not going to like resist. It's so close. And then too, if she's on board with it also, which it sounds like she was,
oh
how do you like push it away or like walk away from it? It's right there in your face. Now you're no longer 1,000 miles apart. It also sounds like they both, or that he was maybe not as infatuated with her as she was with him, but like he obviously was extremely attracted to her. I mean, he was doing all these things against his moral code of being Mormon or whatnot to like fornicate with her. So I don't know.
yeah, I think Travis was definitely getting something out of the relationship, but I don't think it was what Jodi was getting. But she's not gonna give up. So sometimes she would like sneak into his house. So she would use his garage code and like she would be in bed when he got home. And like sometimes he would, well, the way she describes it, like sometimes he'd be like, hey girl, hey, and like be like all over her. And then the next time he would flip out and be like, you know, get out of my house. Like, what are you doing here? And so she's like, I don't know what he wants from me. Does he want me to break into his house or not? And she's just getting kind of really loopy.
Well, why not just change your freaking locks if you don't want her to do that anymore?
Great question. So I think that he did actually. And the reason I think that he did is because later, like, so people will tell the story of he had people, I think, in from like out of town. There's a bunch of people over. She was trying to like come over that night. And he's like, there's not even any room here. Like, don't come. Do not come to my house. And they, so they didn't invite her. They didn't let her in. And I think the garage code had changed, and that's how they knew that she went through the doggy door. She went through the doggy door, and then they found her asleep under the Christmas tree.
Ashley, are you kidding me right now? She climbed, she was that desperate, even without an invitation, that she climbed through a doggy door
Yeah.
and slept on the floor.
And slept on the floor underneath the
That's
Christmas.
really embarrassing. That's extremely embarrassing.
Yeah, it's very embarrassing. It's horrible. But Travis is really trying to move on. I think it's hard to let go of that part of his relationship, but he wants to find a wife, right? Like he's looking for a good Mormon woman that he can share his life with. And he finds this girl, Lisa, from his church. He really likes her. They're dating. Everything seems to be going well. Except for somebody keeps showing up to this girl Lisa's house and pounding on the doors and windows and then running away.
Hmm.
And mysteriously, yes, mysteriously, when Travis is over there, somehow his tires keep getting popped. Like,
I wonder who's doing that.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's hard to deal with that. Like, what do you do? Like, you're being stalked, you don't know what to do. And I think that maybe the kicker at this point is Lisa's finally like, I'm done. And it's not even because she's getting like threatening emails from this crazy lady who's showing up at her house or anything like that. It's because she knows that he's still like he's cheating on her with Jodi, with the girl who's being crazy. And she's like, I'm enough's enough. And she breaks up with him. And somehow around this time, though, he does convince Jodi to move back home. It's been 8 months, and he's like, there's nothing for you here. Like, please leave. And she decides that he's right, and she moves back in with her grandparents in Wairika. And they both move on. They seem to be happier. Travis is falling for this new girl, Mimi, and Mimi's like not that into him. She's like, we can be friends, but he has like a crush on her. He's heavily pursuing her. And Jodi's like, hey, I got the formula down. I'm just going to go to my next convention. I'm going to start my next long distance relationship with this guy, Ryan Burns. And like basically does the same thing. He's also Mormon. Like she's just following everything to a T. She's like, I know the rules here. And
She's got the cheat code, the cheat sheet. So she's like, we're gonna run this one more time.
yeah. So they seem to be happy, but again, what are they doing? Like they start calling each other. And this is when the phone sex really starts. And it's getting bad. And they're like, this is when I was telling you she recorded it and things like that. And this will get brought up in the trial. But it's like, it's again, I'm absolutely 100% not blaming Travis because like he definitely didn't deserve this, but you just see that it seems like they both couldn't let each other go. I do think Jodi had a lot more to do with it, but he was calling her too. He wasn't completely innocent in this toxic relationship. But towards the end of that month, they got into this like huge fight in G chat, and in it they never come out and say exactly what happened, but everybody kind of assumes that either she used those tapes or he found out about the tapes or something and knew that she was going to try to use them to blackmail him. And so they got into this huge fight, and it seems like friends and stuff kind of think like, okay, this is it. Like, have you ever had friends that are in like a really horrible toxic relationship and they have like a huge fight and you're like, okay, this is gonna be it. This is gonna be the last time. I can feel it. And everybody kind of feels that way. Like even Travis is making comments like, I feel like I can move on with my life. And Jodi is planning to go on this road trip. So she's going to go meet Ryan Burns in Salt Lake City, Utah. And she's going to take this road trip there. And like almost right around the same time, Travis Alexander is going to take Mimi Hall to Cancun for this work retreat. The days before the trip that they're actually supposed to leave, Mimi keeps calling Travis and he's like not answering. And, she's like, is he just ghosting me or what? And she's like, he's not the type. Like, he wouldn't just not tell me that he doesn't want me to go anymore. And also, his friends are trying to get a hold of him. And I think what takes so long for somebody to actually like go over there is that a lot of his friends are already in Mexico on this retreat. So part of it too is they're calling him and like asking him like, hey, like we want to do this excursion with you and Mimi. Like, what's going on? And he's not getting back to him. But then he misses this work call and everybody knows like he wouldn't do that. So that was like the deciding factor. Mimi and two of his friends go over to the house. They're pounding on the door, they're ringing the doorbell, and then somebody remembers like, oh hey, I actually have the garage door key, like the garage door code. And so they go into the house. So they get in there and instantly they smell something horrible. Like
Oh my gosh.
yeah, something smells. They're concerned. They go to his bedroom door and it's locked. So they're like, what? But then they actually like run into his roommate. Like his roommate was home, but he was watching a movie and didn't hear them pounding on the door. And he's like, they're like, have you seen yeah, like oh hi. Like,
And it smells really bad in there, and the roommate's just in there chilling.
yeah, and he's just in there chilling, and he's like, they're like, hey, have you seen Travis? And he's like, no, isn't Travis in Cancun? I haven't seen him in like 5 days. And they're like, no, he's supposed to leave for Cancun tomorrow. Nobody can see him and his door's locked. And he's like, okay, I actually have a key to get into the room in a case of emergency. So he grabs the key and he heads for the door. He unlocks it and instantly he sees blood. And he keeps walking and then he sees Travis Alexander dead in his shower and yells, call the cops.
Actually, I'm so like, how does his roommate say he hasn't seen? Tell me that, because I don't know this case that well. His roommate had nothing to do with any of this. Please tell me, right?
Hold on. He has two.
Oh my
roommates.
gosh.
He has two roommates. So he has two roommates living there who smell like a weird smell, but like don't.
No way. I'm serious. The moment, let me ask you this. If you smell something like that smells dead, okay, like dead, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna be like, where is it? Where is it? Until I find it. It's gonna bug me. So please don't tell me this dude was dead in his bathroom for 5 days with two people living in the apartment or wherever they were living.
Yeah. And like, so the cops are very suspicious of them right away. Because the other thing too is they're looking around and there's no, like, nobody broken, right? Like nobody picked a door in or anything like that. There's no broken windows. So, and it's clear because Travis's area especially is really clean. Like, he's got all of his shoes in a nice arranged way. Like the room's really clean. This isn't like some bachelor's room. And so they think like there's some signs of a struggle, but like somebody knew this layout. They knew the area. So they're really looking pretty heavily at these roommates. And the roommates actually check out because they both have alibis. Like they're just like, hey, we're just like dumb young guys. I don't know, like what?
Oh, that have no freaking sense of smell, too.
Yeah. And the cops actually find in the washer that somebody has put the sheets that were on Travis Alexander's bed in the washer, and they'd ran a camera through there. So this is actually going to be her downfall, but it also just proves like, so they didn't do laundry for 5 days. Like that's what I'm hearing. But they're able to, move on from them. They clear them. And now they're going to focus on this camera because the camera's broken, but they're able to get an SD card out of it. And so they have to send it to the lab to try to fix. But other than that, they're kind of stumped. They have no idea what, who it could be. But don't worry, all of the friends are making it damn clear who they think it is. Like every single friend is coming forward. All the family's coming forward and saying, like, you need to look at Jodi Arias. Like she did this. And they don't even have to call her because she's calling them. So Jodi is actually calling the police because she's so brokenhearted and she's the ex-girlfriend and she just wants to see if she can offer her assistance in any way. And she's actually getting angry because they're not calling her back. And so they finally get on the phone with her because they're like, you know what? We do have some questions for you. And side note, this bitch showed up. I'm sorry, there's like no way around it. She showed up to his funeral. She sat in the front row, didn't even cry, and was like, I'm the ex-girlfriend. Can you
The
bel-
audacity. The audacity.
the audacity? And everybody in there thought it was her. Like nobody was questioning it, and she showed up.
I mean, I am listening to this and it's very obvious. So, yeah, I could see everyone like, why is she here? Why isn't she already arrested?
Yeah. So like the cops are talking to her, they're like, where were you? Like they're running through it. And she's like, oh, I was actually heading to Salt Lake City, Utah. Like I was on this road trip. He actually really wanted me to come there and was all upset that I wasn't gonna come to his house on this road trip. But I didn't want to tell him like I was going to see my new boyfriend Barry anyways. And like you can check with Barry, go ahead. I did make a wrong turn and I did get lost for a while, and I'm not above sleeping in my car. So I did sleep in my car for 10 hours because I also sleep a lot. And then I made it to Barry's, and they're like, the time's still not adding up. You still could get to Arizona. And she's like, yeah, but I was never in Arizona. And she's like, like you can check my gas receipts, everything. I was never in Arizona. And they're like, okay. And they're like, well, we'll follow up with Barry. And so they call Barry, and he's like, yeah, Jodi did show up, and she showed up the exact time she said she did and everything. And he's like, there was some weird things though. Like she got there and she had dark brown hair. So he had always known her as that platinum blonde, and she just showed up and she had dark brown hair. And the other thing that he noticed was there was little cuts all over her hands, but she said that was just from bartending. So like that's that. Like he's like basically like that's all I know. And the detectives were like interesting, very interesting. So now it's July 15th. The detectives actually travel all the way to Wairika, California to interview Jodi Arias. And which first of all, they get there and she's not even really like, she doesn't seem concerned. She's not asking like, why did you travel all the way here? Like she's acting like they literally were like, we're just here so you can help us solve the case. But they're like, we just need you to actually break down this road trip for us a little more because we still have some more questions. And she's going through all the issues that she has, and it's just still nothing's really making sense. But they go, well, the weird part is that we found a bunch of your hair at the crime scene. And she's like, that's not weird. My hair's all over the house. So like, I'm sure you probably did. I've stayed there several nights and like all this stuff. And they're like, okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. But we got these pictures off the camera that we found in the washer. Would you know anything about a camera? And she's like, no. You're like, so they pull out all these photos and they're all time stamped, and they're showing like Travis in the shower, time stamped. They're showing like all this stuff. There's pictures of Jodi, and there's naked pictures of both of them. There's some pretty graphic pictures. I think the most famous one, she's got braids in and she's just laying there naked. And she's leaning over the table and she's like, that does look like me. And yes. And so then she's like still denying it. She's like, well, I'm not accusing you, but I hear you can change those, like the time stamps and like all that stuff. And he's like, well, here's one. And it's literally Travis Alexander, like on the ground, he's bleeding, and there's Jodi's leg. And
Wait.
so they're like,
He's bleeding in the picture. So does that mean she's taking pictures as she's doing whatever she's doing to him that causes him to die?
She does take some pictures of him dead, but I think like somehow it was just going off something. So yeah, there's pictures, and she left it at the scene. Like,
I mean, I'm no killer, I'm no murderer, but I mean, how stupid can you be?
it's that's so confusing to me because let me continue on the things that this girl did, but she is still denying it. Like, even picture of her doing it practically, she's like, not me, nope. And
Who is it then? I mean,
oh, let me tell you, Kristen. So, but first, let me tell you. First, they're like, we're done with this girl. So we're arresting you. Like, we're arresting you right now. And she's like, oh, I know this is gonna show just how shallow I am. But can I please freshen up before my mugshot? And they're like, no, fuck no. And they
you're
don't.
kidding.
Yeah, she wanted to put makeup on or like freshen up. Thankfully, they did not let her. But that's like the famous scene then. They leave her alone in that room for a while, and suddenly she does a handstand. She's like talking to herself, and she starts singing "Oh Holy Night." And I remember that just being like all over the news at one point.
Wait, is that a Christmas song? I
I
don't
think
know.
so,
Or
right?
is that like a biblical song or something like that? I don't know. What is that?
I don't know. In
Oh,
my head, I'm singing the Christmas
oh,
song.
yeah.
I'm like,
So
do it, Kristen. Are you gonna sing? I'm not gonna sing.
no, no one wants to hear my voice. But what when is this? Like you gave a date. I can't remember the date that you said. When is this? Is this like around Christmas time? Like I feel like that choice of song, unless
No,
there's a different song.
it's July 15th, so it's not around Christmas. She's
Is
she's
she
singing
high?
she's singing other songs too, but yeah, I don't know. She's high off life. I don't know what is wrong with this girl. So then, who knows? Like, she goes and she takes the mugshot, right, Kristen? And she's smiling and she like tilts her head a little. She does the like the angel face kind of thing. And they said they'd like never seen anything like it. I think it's actually pretty creepy. I wonder what she thinks about that mugshot. Like, I hope she hates it. It's definitely not her best photo.
I mean, I feel like the story behind the photo even is more telling of her personality and her character, that she asked if she could freshen up before they take her mugshot for murder.
Yes. Yes. Who
Like, honey, you've got bigger problems than how your face is gonna look on this mugshot.
Oh, let me tell you who really did it, because you were asking. Because now she's in, she's decides like maybe she'll open up. Actually, she doesn't decide she'll open up, because first they bring in a woman detective and she just like shuts down. She's not interested in talking to this woman at all. And finally, the woman's like, do you want to talk to the other detective again, the male detective? And she's like, yeah, I do think I would be more comfortable. He's talked to the family. All this stuff. So they're like, okay. They bring him back in, and she's like, I think I might need to talk and tell you what really happened now. This is what happened. She says that they were in the shower. She's taking the pictures, and all of a sudden, these two white Americans break in and they have ski masks on, and they shoot Travis in the head, and she's freaking out, and she runs off, and they're like these ninjas, and they're like, they grab her, and the woman just wants to kill her, right away wants to kill her. But the guy's like, no, that's not what we're here for. And they go through her purse and they find her ID, and they're like, oh, you must be that bitch from California. And they tell her, like, if you ever tell anyone about this, we now know where you live, we know where your family lives, and we're coming for you. And we're going to do the same thing for you. So just keep your mouth shut. And then she was like, okay. And then she just ran out. She goes and gets in her car and she drives straight to Salt Lake City.
That is her story
Yeah.
of what happened.
Yes. And the detective first just sits there and stares at her for a second. And then basically laughs and is like, "Is that's the story you came up with? Like that you think that's what's gonna help, that's what's gonna get you out of here? Like you're more screwed than you thought."
Did he actually have a gunshot wound to his head?
Yeah, he was shot. And then he was
Okay.
stabbed like 27 times, I think.
I I want to just slap her right now. I want to physically just, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Yes. Yes. It's gonna get worse too. When we go through the evidence, you're gonna
Oh
get
my
so
gosh.
much more mad. So now she's got to get a lawyer and stuff, right? So she gets I'm sorry guys, it's late. A court appointed attorney, Kirk Nurmi. And this guy is I don't know, he's kind of funny. He reminds me of John Wayne Gacy's lawyer a bit. And he's like just trying to get through this because he can't stand Jodi Arias. Like he actually despises her. Like he'll later blame her for getting cancer. And he quits his job because of her. Like he does not want to defend her. And he petitions to the court to like be let go. And they reject him because she wants him to represent her. So he's stuck continuing the case, even though he's like essentially turned in his 2-week notice. He's now got to defend her for like the next 2 years. Yeah, which I don't know. That is kind of brutal.
I almost feel like no one liked this girl. Like no one. Like,
yes.
Did she have friends of her own? Her own parents, they're like, you're making up these stories about your childhood. Like, who liked her? Was she also an only child?
No, she was one of 4. She was the oldest. I don't know.
Get it. I don't get it.
She always had a bunch of boyfriends. Not like a bunch of boyfriends, but like she's never been without a boyfriend. But I couldn't find a bunch of, there's not a bunch of her friends coming forward and talking about her either way. Like it just seems like she has like boyfriends and then like her boyfriend's friends.
So, like, maybe a fear of being alone, if she's always with someone, or has to have a partner, or has to have someone else that maybe defines who she is. I don't know.
But she had already moved on. She had Barry. Yeah, it was Barry, right? Like, so
I don't know. I feel like whatever her and Travis may have had, it was like what's the word? Like some type of chemistry that's like rare, And it sounds like it was mutual. Like they both were like just drawn to each other. Maybe it was a sexual thing or something. I don't know, but I feel like she couldn't move on from him.
She does I agree. And but I do think she has this like psychopathic energy, like think of like your Ted Bundy's, and not to keep bringing him up, but I definitely think she has some Gacy qualities there. So I think these guys like do fall for her, and they just like, she's got this charisma to her. And I think that, when you combine that with like really good sex, I just like, I don't know if poor Travis had a chance.
I can't really say that, and I'm not saying like, that makes a difference, but was she gorgeous? Is she gorgeous?
I don't think how do I say this? Like she's hot. Yeah, she's hot. She looks good, but she's not like, oh my God. You know what I mean? She's good.
Okay.
You should look at her. Come on.
I'm gonna look her up
You're
after.
gonna look up that naked photo as soon as
No, not the naked photo, but I'm gonna look her up. I'm gonna look her up just to see, because I feel like I have like an idea of what she looks like, but that she just looked very just basic or plain. I don't know. That might come out like weird or bad, but
no, so originally she has this like platinum blonde hair, and she just seems like, I don't know. To me, she seems very like this. She's trying to be like this blonde bombshell, like imagine that kind of character. And then after she dyes her hair brown, and now once she like gets into court, she suddenly is like trying to look like a librarian, like with glasses and like, I'm so sweet and innocent. Like, so yeah, you'll have to look her up. As soon as you'll see her, you're like, yeah, I remember her. But
when she was like exuding the whole bombshell look, was it a true bombshell or was it like a humble bombshell? Because him being Mormon, I feel like that's going to be frowned upon if she's like exposing herself or like revealing things. So was that for like behind closed doors and she was super modest like on the outside, or she was just like
what about
she was letting it
Jodi
all out?
makes you think she's like humble?
I don't know. I'm just like, what if he's looking for this, a good wife and, these qualities that he's looking for in a woman? What did she have on his list? What boxes was she checking for him? Because I feel like I don't see the correlation there.
I do think that she, I mean, I don't think she was wearing like super revealing clothing or anything. I think she was a little too touchy feely. But I think he thought she was a good person and she was trying to do good things and she was a hard worker and stuff, I think she clearly had some good qualities that he saw that he kind of fell for, but I don't know. She
You
seems to trap these guys.
sex can make, they can make men think differently. I feel like they get
Yeah,
caught up in that and then they just everything else, all the other red flags, all the negativity, all the other things that you would just be like, I'd want to stray away from that. I feel like if she was enticing him in that way sexually, that he was just like, oh well, I'm just gonna keep messing around with her because at least I'm being fulfilled with that.
Yeah, the thing that surprised me was I assumed that maybe he lost his virginity to her, but he didn't. Like he had
He didn't.
actually, no, he didn't. There was like this other girl. I don't have too much of the information on it, but they went to the church and like, I don't know what they do. Like I'm Catholic, so we would go and confess. So it was like the equivalent of that, and they had to admit that, yeah, we did it. So I don't know. I think she was offering something a little more wild. Maybe that enticed him too. We'll get into that. Well, of course, we'll get into more details because that's when it really comes out, is in these court proceedings. But so the one thing I did want to add is that her attorney, so Kirk Nurmi, he actually goes to tell her like, hey, like you got your wish. I actually do have to, represent you. And she's like, great. Now she is annoyed because she thinks like, representing her is a big deal. Like he should be saying thank you, if anything. And she threatens him. She's like, look, you need to get on board and you need to represent me the right way, the way I want to be represented, or I'm going to badmouth you. And I know you just quit your job. You've got this whole new career that you're trying to get. And I'm going to tell everybody that you're a horrible lawyer. And I'm going to make this all like, I'm going to ruin everything for you unless you, get on board. And she is talking to the press a lot and stuff. So I think he just feels so stuck with her. But what?
Is she getting sympathy from the press or are they like, this chick's totally guilty at this point?
No, I mean, I think everyone thought she was guilty. I mean, yeah, they were really kind of attacking her, but she kept saying how like she was innocent and nobody was ever going to convict her and all this stuff. But it was just getting crazy. But just like the detectives, Kurt Nurmi and his team are like, look, nobody's buying the intruder theory. So you gotta reason with me. Like, we'll just come up with a better story at least, maybe. I don't know. If we're just all out faking it, maybe we could just come up with something better. And so they start like asking her all these questions about the relationship. And Jodi describes a pretty toxic relationship. She says that she feels like Travis just used her for sex, and that he would call her a slut and a whore and things like that. And like, even in like the recordings, it seems like she's getting into it. But the thing that got me was that he called her routinely the 3-hole wonder. Yeah. To me, I was like, okay, Travis,
Alrighty. Sounds
Also,
like she was doing quite a bit of freakiness for him. So
yeah,
that's
so,
quite the nickname.
well, she confessed it because for a long time they were like just doing butt stuff, because I think, sometimes you're like, well, that's not against the religion, right? So she actually tells the story. So, remember how he baptized her? She claims that, like, when they got home, that he basically attacked her. And, she explains, well, he's assaulting her and, like, aggressively, um, in the butt. I don't know. I don't know how to say it.
Ravaging her butt.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And, like,
that's not funny.
yeah, and like he's like just calling her a dirty whore and stuff. Well, they're doing it, and like they're asking her like, well, did you want that? And she's kind of like, no, not really. Come on, nobody wants that. Like, they're like, well, did you tell him that? And she's like, no, I didn't tell him. Like, and so again, this is all her side of the story, and now she's trying to play really innocent also. So, take it
Of
with a grain.
course.
Yeah. But so allegedly he's getting really abusive around this time. She's really starting to fear her own safety. And she says, like, one time he wanted to borrow $200 and I didn't have it. So he just starts kicking me. And then when I'm like crying and I'm hurt, he tells me, she says that he was like, shut up, bitch. That didn't hurt. Kicks her again and ends up breaking her finger. But by all accounts, her family was like, no, she never mentioned it. Like, there's not like all this evidence that he was actually at least physically abusive. So the trial starts. I already mentioned it was like a media sensation from the beginning. She was willing to talk to the press and they wanted to talk to her. They put several cameras in the courtroom too. Like, it wasn't just one. So, they're getting shots of like all of Jodi's reactions and the parents and like, all this stuff. And they're covering all the angles. And people are desperate to get into the courtroom. They're having to do a lottery every day. And people have like, they're selling their tickets. Like, if they got it, they were selling it for up to like $300, which apparently you're not allowed to do. But people are paying it because they've taken vacation time and traveled all the way to Arizona just to see this trial. And if you didn't get in, then you could go a couple blocks down. They like put a big screen up so you could watch it live. And it was just like a circus.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about this case that made the media so drawn to it, and just people just in general so drawn to it? What was the climax, or what was it that drew people into this? Because I mean, this is such a well-known case. A lot of people have covered this case. What was it about that the media was just so sucked in by it?
I mean, I think it has everything that you want in a media case, right? It's got like, beautiful people, it's got sex, it's got religion, it's got murder, there's recording. Like, it does seem to kind of have everything. I think that's part of it. I actually think it was a big media frenzy, but it was going on also right around the same time as Casey Anthony's case. So I remember that I was actually watching that one a little more, and I don't know, I wasn't like watching this one as closely, to be honest. Like, I remember they kept playing clips of her like singing in the interrogation room and then her smiling mugshot, but I wasn't for neither cases. I didn't fly out to see it. I swear on that. But yeah, I feel like I wasn't watching as closely. But then I remember this 2020, like, one of the two-parters came out after the trial. Like, I think for me, that's when I kind of got a little more obsessed with the case. But I think that's why a lot of crazy shots.
Okay. I hope I didn't just derail you.
I'm like, wait, where are we? I don't know. Where are we? I hope we're not like, I think, okay, we got a few more pages, guys. That's not too far. Hang on, it's gonna get even crazier. So Kirk and Nurmi, he's like getting attacked. This is her lawyer again. He's getting attacked, and because people don't understand why he's defending her. Like they don't know that he doesn't want to be defending her, that he tried to get out of it. And they thought that he was like actually buying the stories that he's gonna like defend and all the stories that she's telling. But he says it's like being stuck on a 24-hour reality show. Like he just wants off and he like he can't turn the cameras off. Juan Martinez is a little different. He's the prosecutor. He seems to sort of love the camera. He's like the opposite kind of guy. So he's smaller, but he's like he's more dramatic. He's, you know, he's a tough prosecutor to face. And Kirk and Nurmi is like not very well known. Like people are sort of shocked that he's even caught, like he's the one defending her. And so they're like not expecting much out of him at all. So the whole reason, the whole argument that the prosecution is going to put on is that this is a revenge killing and that like basically she's mad that he's not taking her to Cancun, that he's moved on and he's going with this other woman. And this is really what like took him over the top and made her fly into a rage. So they actually claim that this is not just, this is like far in advance premeditated. So her grandfather, like weeks before this incident, her grandfather had a break-in and his gun was actually one of the things stolen in the break-in. So yeah, they think like she was thinking that far in advance, like I'm gonna need a gun. And then, I mean, we already mentioned it. She did dye her hair. And so right before she went on this road trip, she dyes her hair. Some other weird things, like she didn't rent a car from her town. She actually drove like 100 miles to rent a car in a much smaller town. And so people wouldn't know she rented a car, I guess. So then this was like the big thing that I remember got to me was her ex-boyfriend admits that she had called him weeks ago and asked to borrow gas cans. And they found a receipt in her house. So she had bought a gas can too. And so they did the math and she could have taken enough gas that she could have made the drive through Arizona without stopping for gas. So there was like no way they could prove she was in Arizona.
You know what, Ashley? That sounds like some pretty sound determination to get somewhere, to call your ex-boyfriend and ask, to use some of his money to buy a gas can so it's not like tied to you.
No.
That's
That's not what she did. She borrowed 2 gas cans from him.
from him.
Yes.
That's determination though, right? Like, come on.
That's determination. Like that's why I'm shocked she left the camera, to be honest. Like she really planned this out. Then you wonder too, like, why did she need a rental car? Like I think that was part of it. So when she showed up there, no one would recognize her car. And then when she got there too, she like took the license plates off. Like that's really weird. That's like something you do, like, oh, end of the trip, let me take the license plates off. So there is a lot of really weird stuff that's hard to argue that this wasn't premeditated.
Absolutely. Wait, she took the license plates off the rental?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but she was just there to like hang out for a little bit, for like a night before she headed to Utah.
That story sounds so fishy. Like, I don't know how she played that out in her head or thinking it was going to be received, but it's not panning out. Sorry, boo.
Yeah, right? So this shocked a lot of people, but she actually took the stand. And the reason she took the stand, like her team said there was no way they were ever going to be able to sell the story of like where her headspace was, kind of what happened. They knew they were going to have to put her on the stand. And the first question they ask her is, did you kill Travis Alexander? And she said, yes, I did. And the simplest explanation is that he attacked me and I was defending myself. So this is the new story. So this is like story number 3.
And she gives this on the stand?
Yeah.
Like on
the stand.
So her lawyer hates her.
She was on the stand for like 8 days. Her lawyer does. That is true. That's funny. So here we go. This is the story. This is what really happened, supposedly. So she's taking pictures and it's really steamy in there. And she ends up dropping his brand new camera and he flips out. So he jumps out of the shower and he slams her whole body onto the tile and he's yelling at her, a 5-year-old could hold the camera better than you could. And she somehow gets away from him and she just starts running. And then she like runs into his closet and she remembers that he has a gun there. And so she grabs the gun and she's pointing it at him, but he's still running at her. And then the rest is a blur. She says that like it's all just a fog because of the trauma.
How convenient.
How convenient. She's got, this memory loss issue. But then this is where they go into it, Kristen. They go for it and they just start playing their phone sex tapes in court. And they go for it. I mean, you can hear it. And he's like calling her a whore, like all the stuff. Again, she seems very into it. But they play several of them. I mean, like he's talking about wanting to tie her to a tree and you know what I mean, and do what he wants with her. And she's like, ooh.
So this is like his thing or their thing of like dirty talk or whatever that gets them hot, but she's trying to play it off as if like that's how he really talks to her, or that's how he really sees her, as like a whore and like a slut or whatever. But they're talking like this during their dirty talk. So, it's either, is it a bad thing or is it something that you guys are doing to turn each other on?
Right. Exactly. So this is the part of the tape where I'm a little like, so she actually flat out accuses him of being a pedophile. And she says that like one time she walked in and he was masturbating to a picture of a young boy. So then they play this recording, and this is another phone call. And Jodi Arias is, she's, how do I say this? She's clearly finishing, and she's finishing loudly into the recording. She's having a great time. And then Travis goes, oh boy. And then he goes, you sound like a 12-year-old girl having your first orgasm. That's hot. And she goes, well, what did you say? And he says it again. He says, you sound like a 12-year-old girl having an orgasm. So what do you think about that?
So is that why or how she then tried to play on the whole pedophile thing? Like, what is that about?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I asked a couple guys, like, would you, like, is that something you would ever say? And they were basically like, please don't ask me that. Like, don't, like, no. Like, they all made it clear, like, they wouldn't say that. But I never want to defend something like that. But they also did a lot of dirty talk. And, like, you know what I mean? It's not like they never, ever talked, like, very extreme. And, like, I don't believe that he was driving to California and tying her to trees. And, you know what I mean? So, yeah. Like, it would be far more concerning to me if he was just, like, very vanilla and then all of a sudden said that. But it was weird. So the lawyer, her lawyer, Kirk Nurmi, he will eventually get in a lot of trouble because he writes this like tell-all book. And in the book, he says like, hey, I actually didn't believe this. I don't believe this. I don't believe he's any kind of a pedophile. He was like, but I was, held to my 6th Amendment. I had to defend her And I couldn't really find any evidence that he did, and I couldn't find evidence that he didn't, and we did have this recording. So that's why they played it, and that's why they covered it. But again, in his book, he wants to make it clear that they checked his whole house, and obviously he didn't know anyone was coming over. They checked his whole house. They didn't find anything. They checked his computer extensively, and they did not find anything.
I think it sounds like it was just something that he stated. I mean, did he know that he was being recorded?
No, he did not know he was being recorded.
So maybe this girl had a motive the entire time, because why record all this shit?
I think it was to blackmail him. Like, he's seen as this like really good guy in the Mormon community, and like that right there would just, any of that would really like take him off of that status.
Yeah.
And especially the she's like, what did you say? Like, say it again in the mic kind of thing. Like, she was trying to get that on recording.
It sounds like she had a motive the entire time. Like, even before, like, outside of the obsession that she had with him or of him, it sounded like it was like just a different avenue she was eventually going to take at some point anyways, and it was just waiting for the opportune moment to do it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't like her either, Ashley.
I know. I'm telling you, like, I didn't know I was going to hate her this much, but I hate her. So let's go into the cross-examination, because now Juan Martinez is like so excited. He was sitting there the whole time, just like, I can't wait to attack her for all this garbage that she's saying. So he gets up there. The almost problem is she's ready for him. Like, she's sassy, which kind of goes against your like good girl library attitude of like, I'm so innocent. But like, she was snapping back at him, and I think they would kind of almost spar on the stand. It was crazy. One thing that I thought was interesting was that they had all of these like personal details. They found her diary, so they had all these like crazy personal details, and like even on that day, like she's talking about how she's falling in love with Travis and all this stuff, but she's not writing in there like, I'm really concerned that my boyfriend's a pedophile, or she's not writing like, he's beating me up all the time, like he broke my finger. She doesn't write any of that. So he called her out on that, and she claims, well, it's because I prescribe to the law of attraction. And so she says, apparently you can't write anything bad down, because if you write bad stuff down, then like bad stuff will happen to you in life. Like, you only want to focus on the good and the positivity.
I'm like, how do you prepare for a question like that? Did she know that that question was coming? Because that's quite the response. But what?
I don't know. If I'm like, what's the point of journaling then, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So, but yeah, again, they really went back and forth, and finally they went through closing, and the jury goes out and deliberates, and she is found guilty of first-degree murder. And Jodi looks shocked. Like, she's stunned. Like, she really didn't think she was going to get charged for this. But now they have to move on to the sentencing phase, and they're after the death penalty. And so during this part of the phase, the family, like his family and his friends, they get a chance to like express how she ruined their lives and everything. It's really emotional. And then Jodi gets the chance to talk. So the audacity of this horrible woman. She has the nerve to bring a shirt that says Survivor that she made. She says she's making shirts, and that you can now purchase these shirts, and she's going to donate all of the proceeds to organizations for battered women, basically. So she also had to throw in that he was like still alive when she slit his throat. Like there was no reason to mention that besides to like, you just wanted to make sure the family heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. Those final digs is what it sounds like is what she was aiming for. And I mean, survivor of what? Survivor of what exactly?
Right. So the jury goes back, but they couldn't agree. They really couldn't agree. So it was a hung jury. And yeah, so they said they so one of the jurors came forward and said like they really just couldn't grasp the fact that she would go all that way if it was that premeditated and then have sex with him all day.
That makes perfect sense to me. I don't know how that can be not considered. I feel like that is totally something that could happen.
Right. It was also a guy, and I was like, maybe he doesn't understand. Like, the girl can enjoy it too. Like, she could have been getting something out of it. Like, you might not know about that, sir, but like,
It's a
uh,
thing.
it is a thing. Uh, they also brought up that they thought it was weird that he was stabbed so many times. If she had brought the gun and they, she knew she had the gun, like why wouldn't you just go in and do it right away? So yeah, it was a hung jury, and at that point, the state could just say, okay, we're just gonna give you life in prison, or they can go back and they can go in front of another jury. But his family wanted her put to death. Like they were like, you get in there, like you get her prosecuted.
Killer.
Yeah. So they go back to court. And I kind of like I loved reading about this from like all the different angles because like Kirkman and Nurmi was just like he wanted to be done so bad. Like he hated her so much. And now he's got to go back and defend her again because they basically have to go through the whole trial. Even though she's guilty, all they have to decide is whether or not she deserves the death penalty. So they go back and they come back a hung jury again. And the family, so his sister was actually really mad because the one juror who held out, she actually told the prosecutor. She said she told him like, you should pull her. I don't want that person on the jury, and he didn't. And that was the one holdout who didn't convict her. So I guess in Arizona, the law is just like you get two shots. If you can't convict her, then it's automatic life in prison. So now she has life in prison, and she won't be put to death though. So she did file an appeal in 2020, but thankfully it was denied. She is still basically, from all accounts, a horrible person in jail. She's still like flirting with guards and getting special attention from that. And sometimes her mom will come all the way from California because she's in Arizona to see her, and she'll refuse because she has some other guy there visiting her that she wants to see.
So she's got like a fan club or like a fan base of men that are like obsessed with her kink
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
her look.
she even ended up like she was dating this really rich guy for a while and all this stuff. They like talked about getting married so they could petition for visitation, but uh yeah, that didn't end up happening. So,
Do they want to die? Do they want to die?
well, and that's true. Like I really like we talked about this with Betty Broderick. Like I really think that Betty needs to let it go. We talked about that. But like I think if you let her out, she wouldn't do this again. Like I 100% think if Jodi had gotten away with this, like she would have continued murdering. Like I really 100% believe that.
Yeah, I feel like a different level of crazy, diabolical. And I don't know, like I don't know what's driven her to that, but I agree with you. I feel like she would totally be a repeat offender if she was found not guilty.
Yeah. And yeah, I think what annoys me is that she's like just really living life to the fullest that she possibly can there. She actually, to make extra money, she started tattooing. And so I found this Inside Edition interview with her like cellmates, and they were saying how like this woman had tattoos from all over on her. And she said she regretted all of them, especially the one that said Jodi Arias. on it.
Wait, another person got Jodi Arias tattooed on them? Another like female inmate?
Yeah, I think I don't even know if she knew she was doing it. Like Jodi put Jodi's name on
I
it.
don't understand.
Yeah,
Why?
why? So I'm gonna leave you with this one last thing, just to make you a little more mad.
Oh
So
my.
she started painting in jail, and she started selling her paintings in jail. And for example, she recently sold a Grace Kelly portrait that she painted for over $3,000. So she is one of the wealthiest murderers, like criminals that's locked up right now, and her total net worth is estimated at between $1 million to $5 million.
I mean, what?
Yeah,
And she's behind bars.
and she's behind bars. So she was selling them on Etsy and or Etsy. She probably is selling them on Etsy. She was selling them on eBay, and then she got shut off of eBay. So then other people started selling them for her, and like she has a whole website. They set her website up. They like explain to you how you can write to her and like all the rules for writing to someone in jail, like don't use glittery ink, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'm really curious to know your opinion, and then I'll leave it there. What do you think? Do you think that inmates should have access to things like that where they can monetize off of their crimes? Do you agree with that or do you disagree with that? Because I mean, we are lovers of true crime. I mean, I can't say like I haven't like been interested in buying something or whatever that is just completely off the wall. But how do you feel about convicts or inmates like this monetizing off of their crimes? Using their crime as some type of fame, really, and able to increase their monetary whatever
I
because of
mean,
it.
I want to say it's disgusting and we need to put a stop to it and like morally it's wrong. But then like I'm the person who's like, so I'm going to Tennessee so that I can go to this murder museum. You know what I mean? Like I've been to both death museums, so I've seen John Wayne Gacy's like his paintings and stuff. So I don't know. I feel like I should judge, but I can't. Someone else should judge for me. You can do it, Kristen. You judge for me.
No, I am not here to judge. I just wanted your opinion. I mean, I honestly, I don't know. I feel like I can't even say depending on the crime, but I don't know. Maybe we'll do a poll maybe and see what our listeners think. What do you think? Eh, I don't know. This was great though. This was great. Um I am I think this lady was a piece of she's a turd for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I knew I was gonna hate her, but I thought this was gonna be more of like a toxic love story, like where we were gonna go back and forth. But like the whole time I was like, you're a lying little like I'm not a Jodi Arias fan. Oh,
I second that.
one last thing. So I did find this clip like almost right before we came on. So she actually shot a video in jail where she was trying to interview for American Idol. So she's still singing. She never stops.
Last question.
Okay, last question, then we'll go.
How did she sound? Is there talent there or is she just blowing smoke? Like what?
I mean, she's better than me, but like I wouldn't. There's a reason she doesn't have a record deal, right? There's a reason she's painting and not singing.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Ashley.
Well, thank you. And I hope everybody enjoyed. And please rate and review us. We love you guys, but it would really help us and help us get the name out there. So thanks again.
Continue to support. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.